Hold on, let me get
Tip of the tongue, the ice
Yeah.
of the teeth.
relaxed
That's
here.
not
Let
how
me
it goes.
uncross my legs. Are you gonna be like, hi?
Red
oh.
leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather.
Boobies. Boobies. Hi,
Hello and hi and welcome.
it's Boobies.
It's Boobies. That's right. And we are your host. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Joshua.
And we are here to whisper in your ear some spooky tales.
Mm-hmm.
Psst, 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 psst,
Continuing on our fun Oktoberfest film festival ish for Boobies, we're going to be talking about The Conjuring 2 today.
That's right.
Because
We talked about The Conjuring
exactly
on Tuesday.
last episode.
Yes. And so now we're just going to keep it going.
Yeah. It's
2016.
also our pick as well. It's kind of both of our picks
Yeah.
together, like we've mentioned.
Because we love the Conjuring series.
Yeah.
Well, until
The devil made me do it.
I would
kind
be
of
curious to like go back and
rewatch.
watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because
I've thought about it.
there were a lot of like things that I brought up. I remember in the Conjuring 3 or the Devil Made Me Do It episode
Mm-hmm.
that annoyed me with that film. And then I was like, but really kind of all of the films follow that exact same.
Setup.
Yeah. No, The Conjuring.
The Conjuring 3 was a little
Devil Made Me Do
different.
did
It kind of it added things that it didn't necessarily have before.
There were too many storylines, but each Conjuring film does start out with an additional haunting under the Warrens' belt. Like The Conjuring started out with the Annabelle case, and then it moved in to the Perrin case.
Yeah.
And then this one started out with the Amityville and the Lutz family case, and then it moved into the
Enfield case.
Yeah.
Enfield. Mm-hmm.
What was their Hodgson?
The Hodgson family.
Hodgson family.
Hodgson.
It was a weird name to spell.
But yeah, I get what you mean. They all kind of do that, just like how the third one did. But the third one also had
18 other stories.
had like a witch leaving totems under people's
Daddy
beds. Like, yeah, it was a little different. It was a way different direction than these went into.
And
I
the
feel
acting just was not as good.
maybe, and that could be just more like not necessarily acting, but like a writing, like the dialogue itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but today we're talking about The Conjuring 2.
I don't hate this one.
I love how you're like, I'm going to rewatch it. I'm thinking about rewatch it. Nope, still hate it. But yeah, it starts off, like you said, with the Amityville case in 1976.
You get a quote from Lorraine Warren saying, like, we've done many things, but this one still haunts me.
Yeah.
Basically.
Which didn't they say like the last one was the most like the whatever? Remember at the beginning, it's like this case is like one they hadn't talked about because
Oh, yeah.
it was the most horrifying one. And then they're like, no, this one is. I think it's just funny because maybe they didn't make the first one anticipating like such a success. And then like, we're definitely going to get sequels.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they're like, no, this is definitely bigger and badder than that one, which I mean, it kind of was.
It was, yes. Yeah. And I mean, it is kind of like what did. And as the beginning of the film says, it's like what kind of catapults the Warrens into the public eye. Mm-hmm. This is like what really, really gets them noticed, but also a fuck ton of like scrutiny.
Mm-hmm. After the Amityvilles and all that. Yeah.
After the Amityville case.
They get met with a lot of like skeptical people as well, especially skeptical. I meant to say skeptical people, like when they go on those talk shows and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. But
and
they're
immediately we get my BB boy setting up.
Setting up, and then
Such
they're
a cutie.
Getting ready to do
no role in this film.
No, not at all, except
right
this
there.
part. I missed him on the other half whenever we have some other dude who's doing stuff, and
not as lovable.
He didn't get really too much screen time either.
No, he didn't. Also, the wallpaper in there was so cute.
Yeah,
was a big fan. His name's Drew, right?
Drew.
Yeah, I love Drew.
They're
Team Drew.
Getting ready for a seance as well, because they're going to try to contact the dead. And see what's going on in the house.
And it says basically 2 months prior to the Warrens' involvement, the Lutz family fled their home in the middle of the night. And then they're basically talking around that little seance table and talking about how Ronnie DeFeo murdered his entire family allegedly under the influence of something demonic.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out if that's actually the case or if he just murdered his family.
Yeah. Which I mean could be either. But
yeah, I'll be excited to cover
exactly
the Amityville case more in depth
and learn more about it.
Poltergals.
I honestly don't know too much about it. I've never really looked into it,
have you watched the movie
I haven't
yet?
seen the films.
No, not yet.
So it'll be like all new for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fun.
I'm excited. Just recently, I know I told y'all, I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast, but how Andrew and I were looking at going back to New York. And
going
I
to
was
the
like,
house.
if I go, like when I go back to New York this time, I want to go by the Amityville house. And so,
how far is it from like New York?
It's like a 1 to 1.5 hour drive.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like suburbs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so go out there. You can't obviously like go into the house. It is private property, but you can sure as hell drive past it and take some photos. And am I going to do that?
Like people live in it now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And I'm sorry, like if I say this all the time, like especially with the Texas Chainsaw, like the Hewitt Mansion, that's
make a profit off
on
of
the
it.
way. Yeah, I would be fucking
capitalizing.
Being like, you want to spend the night? I'm gonna make this shit a fucking haunted Airbnb. Like,
True.
You want to spend the night in the Amityville house? Fucking be my guest.
I don't know if that like opens the doors to a lot of different
monies.
kind of liabilities.
I have more money than $50 probably.
The type of people who would want to go spend the night there would be into some like freaky shit, if that makes sense. Like, or try to like contact or like perform their own spooky things. Yeah, like I just feel like that opens up a whole can of worms maybe. But honestly, is that really on you when it's just on the people who are renting the space for that time? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's interesting. That's an interesting concept.
Maybe
of like, what if that's that's an interesting concept for a movie, like creating a movie where it's an Airbnb but like haunted and like I don't know,
like well-known haunted and people going in and trying to
still
mess with spirits and stuff.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'd put cameras in the basement so that way no one's trying to contact any entities.
I don't think
down
you
there.
can. You can't do that with Airbnbs.
Yeah, you can.
You can? I thought you couldn't put cameras in.
Yeah, I think you have to like make it known
that there's a camera there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. No hidden cameras.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense.
Well, because like in that, now that wasn't an Airbnb that we stayed in for Sonia's birthday.
Yeah, I remember
but that one had cameras
in the living room
and in the stairwell. And they said they did.
Yeah, they did.
So
it was like on a big old list of rules on the wall. But
anyways, if I owned the Amityville house, I would be like
making bank,
monetizing the shit out of it. But that's just me. I'm just a Capricorn. So I just want money.
You're about that bank.
That's right.
About the bag. And so we have them doing the seance. Lorraine kind of enters like this other realm, ghostly plane kind of situation where she's in the position of the eldest son of the what is their name?
Ronnie DeFeo.
Yeah.
She's going through the murders with Ronnie and the actual DeFeo murders, not the Lutz obviously fled before murders occurred.
But they're going through and she's kind of getting POV witness of like everybody getting murdered, like the mom, the dad is shot. Right. And
that is what's so fascinating about this case is how did he go room to room? Because I believe there were no sedatives found in their systems. So how did no one
like wake up or hear
with these
get
gunshots?
Out of bed? I don't know. That's weird.
It is
supernatural.
Yes.
And then we have her getting all the way through all of that. She ends up kind of getting overwhelmed with everything. And then we see her looking at that little boy.
Yeah,
who's got glowing eyes. Yeah, and she follows him down the stairs. Or is it walking up the stairs? I don't know. Either way.
Yeah, it's upstairs with her, and then it kind of runs downstairs. It's leading her downstairs.
Yeah.
And then he's basically leading her down to the basement. I mean, he disappears as she gets down the stairs and she sees herself and the rest of the people doing the seance at the table.
Yeah.
And then the basement door
opens up.
And then he's like, and runs downstairs.
It gives very much like the first Conjuring whenever we had the mom getting led by the spirits into the basement.
Yeah. And locking her in.
Yeah. Which was pretty creepy.
Yeah.
But yeah, she, of course, she has to follow the little boy downstairs because she like wants to see what's going on. It's
He's
showing
trying to
her.
show me.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to see.
Uh-huh. Because at this point, Ed is like, okay, that's enough. Like,
because
come
her
back
body's
to me.
clearly reacting.
Mhm.
Like whenever she got that overwhelmed like sense, as you
Mhm.
said earlier, her
Physical
physical
form.
body also reacted.
Yeah.
And so Ed's like, oh, okay, something's not going right. And we already know Ed's super protective of Lorraine after that incident 7 years ago is when this is taking place. It was 7 years.
Yeah.
Or maybe not at this time. Maybe it was a little bit because this was 76.
And that happened in 71.
Something
The
like that.
the parent
case
house was
but
71.
Yeah.
And
then
I think it was like 2 or 3 years before that was whenever they
mention at one point, they say in the exorcism 7 years ago, and they flash to that. But I think it's 7 years from when we're at the actual Enfield, England case.
Gotcha.
And I don't think this was the same year, but I don't really remember.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in the timeline of events that happen, and then they kind of catch up together.
Anyway, she gets down to the basement.
And she ends up seeing...
Basement's like shrouded, which is fucking creepy to begin with. I understand why they do it, but no.
Can't catch me going down there because it's too much of a, you don't know what's going to happen.
And then there were like clearly things that looked like human forms.
Yeah.
It was like
I think
borderline mannequins.
She sees ghosts at that point.
Yeah, because all the DeFeo kids pop up.
Exactly.
She was following, I think, the youngest DeFeo kid. And that was clear because at each time one got shot, we got a flash of their picture with them, like
showing who's who.
Yeah. And so I believe this was the youngest DeFeo boy. We were following down the stairs, and it did look like him. And then we get all 4 of the children standing there, and then they're just like meh, pointing in this general direction.
Into the mirror that is covered up right now, but she takes off a blanket.
Gave me very Oculus.
It did, didn't it?
Made me want to watch it.
Harry Potter as well.
Oh, yes.
The big old mirror. And she's looking in it, and she sees a ghost behind her.
Yeah.
And it's the form of the nun. And then she...
And of course, it's only in the reflection.
Yeah, because she looks behind her. It's not there. She looks forward, and then it's obviously right in front of her.
It's getting closer each time, and I'm like, why are you going to look back again?
Yeah.
Because then the third time she looks back and looks back to the front, it's right in front of her, choking her.
And like literally the form.
But then it's
and flesh.
herself choking her.
And when she's up there with Ed, yeah.
And well, even down there in the basement, it was like the nun rushed her and was choking her, and then she pulls away and realizes it's her own hands. And I'm like, oh, is this like some sort of metaphor for like, I don't know, humanity or
taking it real deep?
Well, and then, I mean, well, obviously, because the nun, as they say later, it took this inhuman spirit, took the form of this, it was a blasphemous form. It took that to mock her faith. And so I'm wondering if it was like, I don't know, trying to, or if it's just, it's a spirit that makes you harm yourself and harms like the people around you. And that's kind of what happened to DeFeo. And so, like, after he went through and killed all those people, actually, he didn't. I don't think he actually did.
But are you talking about Valak itself?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what is Valak connected to those, to the DeFeo case? Like, is that Valak? So. You think?
Yeah. I mean, if it took the same form. So I think it is. I think it's just that this, I feel like the entity was almost more mocking and haunting the Warrens and getting their attention.
Yeah.
And getting them to come places.
Well, that's what I was saying. That same, like, Valak itself is in other movies and, like, has shown up to her before this. Has Valak not? I thought to Lorraine.
In other movies?
Yeah.
Like what?
In another Annabelle movie, or is it?
Oh, maybe. I don't. It's been so long since I've seen any of the Annabelles now. I don't remember.
I just feel like there's like a situation where it all kind of leads up to Valak leading Lorraine up to the culmination of them meeting here in the Conjuring 2. So that's why I don't know if like if Valak itself is connected to what are their names of the Amityville case?
The Lutz, the DeFeos.
The DeFeos. Like if it's just like a demon piggybacking on whatever transpired there already, if that makes sense. You get what I mean? Like that was maybe a whole separate like demon or something there that was like.
I feel like the intention of the film was to show that this same entity was between the two families. So And like the Warrens were kind of the linking aspect.
The bridge.
Because it felt like it was targeting Lorraine.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that she saw it, I mean, now it could have been
because
not originally with DeFeo, but maybe with the Lutzes.
Yeah.
It was the entity that was making and terrorizing the Lutzes, causing them to leave. And then that was why she saw it in their basement.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was still in the Lutz family, the Amityville basement.
Yeah.
And then that is the same entity she sees later throughout her home, and then also
in Enfield in England.
Yeah,
which also like this demon's got passports.
It does.
It's like
I feel like you probably don't have a
globe.
lot of rules. It probably just takes.
It's latched onto her basically as well.
Underneath.
I feel like so. It's just like following her wherever.
Kind of like how Bathsheba was able to then go target her family,
even when they went to go like stay at the motel and stuff. She was able to like have that hold on her.
But Bathsheba even came into the Warrens' home and targeted Judy.
You're right.
Through the locket.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they just really need some sort of
conduit. Yeah,
and or something to connect them that gives a spiritual connection to another time or place.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like then they can probably, I mean, time is
relative.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm imagining in the demonic or spiritual realm,
it's way different.
They could probably do things like pop, 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 real fast, snappy
with jazz hands, jazz snaps.
I'd watch that.
It gives the next Broadway breakout show.
Valak. In boots.
The Defiler.
The Defiler.
The Marquis of Snakes.
Yes.
And then we have all of this happening. She comes to after seeing Ed, right? Or we don't see actually at this point. She sees something really horrible happen and she comes up out of her thing.
We actually do see it.
Is it when we sees Ed getting stabbed?
Because we don't know that her other vision, the one that she saw during
the exorcism,
yes, that they kept showing in the Conjuring 1 film that we never really got to like see
that
into.
Vision. No.
Yeah, we never got to see that vision. That was the one that caused her to go lock herself in her room for 8 days, blah, blah, blah. Apparently it was the same vision, which makes me think that maybe that was even Valak then.
I believe it was.
Yeah, so I feel like maybe all of these are supposed to be
because
Valak.
The Nun goes back and ties it all together. The movie The Nun.
Okay.
Remember? Have you seen that one?
I don't actually think I have.
Okay, that ties it.
I feel like maybe I just saw the trailers.
It ties it all together where it goes back.
I've seen this.
Ages before all of this happening and the origins of Valak. And then how this demon then comes into targeting basically
we should cover that.
The Warrens. Yeah.
I want to cover that soon. That'll be our choice soon.
It has not Vera, but her sister. Thaisa. Farmiga.
Cool. No clue.
American Horror Story. Murder House. The girl. The teenage girl. Tate's girlfriend.
Okay. I know
That's
her. I didn't know that was her sister.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the chances of there being multiple people with that last name and not being related?
Oh, it's a whole they're like a whole family. Their dad was like a director / actor, and their mom's in the business, and they have like other siblings I think who do stuff in the business as well.
Damn, that's pretty cool. Well.
Yeah. So they're doing all of that shenanigans. She is basically she's telling Ed she saw the most horrible thing ever, and it's as close as to hell as she ever wants to get. And then we go to London.
Enfield, England.
And we're on the school steps. We're with our main homie for the movie, Miss Janet. And she's with some other girl. I don't remember her name. She's not really important. Camilla, yeah. And Camilla. They're smoking, Camilla is smoking cigarettes, and Janet just wants to look cool, so she also is holding the cigarette, takes it from her. But then a teacher obviously catches them and then is like, y'all shouldn't be doing that, takes them inside, but also before stepping back inside takes a puff of the cigarette.
She takes a little drag of it
and
herself.
Then
before we get too much further, we also then got the good perfect the title card again, and kind of explaining while all this Amityville stuff was happening, another / more widely documented case was occurring in Enfield, and then it brings us there, and because it kind of does that pan in on their face again, freeze frames it, and then brings us that yellow text, and then we get the cool Conjuring 2 entrance.
Yeah,
and I like that. And then also just the shots and the music and everything that they played gave such the like typical idea of London that you get, and then going to the little school steps with them, and then
especially for the time period, because it's also the 70s, 80s, 70s, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. So it looks vintage.
Yeah.
Also in that sense,
kind of gives you that like London punk scene.
Very much that
occurring around those times. So,
and that's hence why also these like 11-year-old girls are smoking cigarettes on the steps.
Yeah.
Trying
I mean, clearly they
cool.
weren't supposed to, and playing with spirit boards that they made and stuff. And that was, why Janet even got caught with it, is because Camilla was like, "Let me give you the spirit board back."
Yeah.
And I would have punched Camilla for not speaking up.
I guess, but I mean, I feel like they were both. Janet has just as much as like. I mean, she made her choice, and like, yeah, I'll take it back. Like, I'll play with it at home, especially when she was playing with it with her older sister too, as well.
Oh, I meant like, for Camilla not speaking up about smoking, because Janet's the one who got in trouble.
Yeah.
For smoking when she wasn't even smoking.
Oh, well, they're little kids. Of course, Camilla's not gonna be like, no, it's me. I want to get in trouble.
True. I know, but still, fuck that bitch.
Yeah.
But also, she does come in clutch later, so it's okay.
But they get in trouble, obviously. I'm like, I have in my notes, I'm like, everything's so British, because they're obviously in England.
Yeah.
But we get to see that there's kind of like a little kid getting picked on right now, and it happens to be her little brother who has a stutter. And we also find out that there's 4 siblings.
Yeah, they do a good job of introducing them rather organically here.
They all kind of come to you
because
as they're
Janet
walking home from
and
school.
Billy are coming out of the younger grade school, and then Margaret and Johnny are coming out of the older one. So like Janet yells Billy, stammers and says Margaret, and then that's when Janet's like, Margaret, Johnny, and then they're like, Janet, Billy, and stuff to one another. And I thought that was a good way to get you to know all 4 of the siblings. Yeah, rather like easily. But yeah, then there's fucking Peter. He comes up and he's like, just spit it out.
Yeah.
Billy. And then
pretty mean.
That's when Camilla comes up and she's like, I don't know what she says. Yeah, your mom or something like that. And then they're like, yeah, he's just a wanker.
A wanker.
A wanker.
A bloody wanker. And
Does that mean penis?
I guess,
so I would call a wanker.
I think it just means like a knob. Yeah. A pee-pee.
Pee-pee.
Oh, a wanker, like a masturbator. Yeah.
To wank off.
Yeah, I get it.
He winks.
Yeah. Oh, we wink. It gives me wombo. Wombo.
You wink, we wink, we all wink.
Wombo. And so we go to the Hodgson residence
on Green Street.
Yeah, and we have Mom talking to like some bill collectors. She sounds a little stressed out. She's obviously having a little trouble making ends meet, I would say. We have kind of chaos with the kids running around. They're playing games or chasing each other. She's
yelling at them yelling at Janet about smoking while smoking.
Small smoking. It's kind of ironic because she got that phone call from school. And then we have like her screaming about someone's bitching about something, and she's like, well, we have no money.
Yeah. Oh, well, Billy was asking for biscuits.
That's right.
He was like, Mom, you promised you'd get me some biscuits. And she's like, I can't get you any biscuits, Billy, because we haven't got any money.
Literally just like that. It's hilarious. That's a really spot on, actually.
Thank you.
Good impression.
I will never be able to do it again.
And
we get some really good long shots taking us throughout the house. Again, very similar, reminiscent of the first Conjuring. Whenever they first get to the house, and remember how we followed Homegirl through with her wind chime to the back.
Yeah, you get a good little layout.
Yeah, and so it does that again, bringing you through.
Houses in these movies are just as important as anything else, obviously, because the haunting's all about the house. This one's not necessarily the house per se. It's more so like the demon targeting.
Yeah.
But you
need the layout of the house, especially for that ending part, wherever Janet goes through the ceiling, or like whenever she's tied herself to the bed with her mom, and she's like on the kitchen ceiling, which is, I believe, beneath the mother's room. Or actually, maybe it's not, because then he pulls her back up into the cross room, which was her old bedroom.
Yeah, there's a lot of supernatural shit going on too, though. Like the part where she's essentially like Velcroed to the ceiling, watching everything.
Yeah, that part. That's part of it. And so you need to know the layout of the house for that. So it comes in and they do a good job, again, of giving us a very natural and making you feel familiarized, like with everything, with the individual characters. You're kind of getting to see each of them in their elements as they get ready for bed and prepare for school the next day.
Yeah, that's true.
And
we have them. That's whenever mom ended up making biscuits anyways. She says like, well, I wanted to quit smoking anyways. So she makes Billy biscuits. And she's like, don't eat too many because we don't want you getting sick. And it's all kind of a chillish night. We then have
until Margaret or Janet pulls out a fucking spirit board.
Yeah, they're in this whack ass, like, very. It was so funny looking because it very much looks like some kids made it and like out of cut up like newspaper, like magazine
it was a cereal
clippings.
Box.
Yeah, it was something.
It was just open.
I don't know.
It looked like Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
But they did make one and it had all the letters and everything and yes and no in the corner. But they start trying to communicate with the spirits.
And the planchette was like 3 little pencils.
Yeah.
Shoved through something. Yeah.
And they end up trying to communicate with the spirits, and Janet is more like, are you my dad? Or no, what did she say?
Is Dad ever coming home?
Yeah, that's what it is. Is Dad ever coming home? And the Margaret looks like, oh no, this is getting really deep. Like, fuck.
I didn't sign up for this.
Literally. And so then it does move though, because they're like, let us know if you're here or something. And it goes to like MIN, but we don't see it go to the last part. Do you know? It
does?
Yeah.
I thought it didn't move at all, and so they just put it under the bed.
Is that oh, my bad. You're right. That's a different part.
Okay. I was like...
I got ahead of myself, but it does move later. Do you know what part I'm talking about?
No, actually.
The mine, because then it smells mine.
Oh, no.
Because the old man is always like, my house.
My house.
Mine. But, okay.
I must have been writing a note during that.
But I also did get ahead of myself right here because the planchette, and even look at what I wrote next. The planchette doesn't move. And then she puts it right under the bed. And I'm like, that's putting like a portal like right underneath your bed.
Yeah.
To the spirit world.
Yeah. And you didn't even say goodbye. You
didn't exit it out.
Hard.
She left all those tabs open.
Yeah. And then next thing we know, Janet's transported like downstairs next to the chair. She like wakes up and she's on the floor next to that fucking crusty ass chair. And then we're back up with Margaret simultaneously. I believe this is happening. There's just this dun, 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 like obnoxious and loud pounding on her door.
Yeah.
And then she realizes, looks over, Janet's not in bed. So she's like,
so essentially we think it's Janet, right? I thought it was
I didn't. I was like,
Janet.
Nah, that knocking's too aggressive. In my head, I was like, that's a ghost. That's a ghost. And then she opens the door. No one's there. And Janet rounds the corner eventually and is like, she's like, stop pounding on the door. And Janet's like, what was it?
She was in the restroom, I guess, or something. I don't know. Or had just come up.
I think she had just come up from downstairs and was confused and disoriented. And she's like, I've been sleepwalking.
Yeah.
I don't know. But then we get back to the interview with the Warrens. And I don't remember this doctor's name. I just put, he's got a doctorate.
Yeah.
And this guy's being like, it's all fake.
Yeah. He's being very skeptical, and he's saying that everything that they do is just to like get money, to get publicity, to get famous. It's all a sham. And Ed is getting pretty heated with him.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I believe
he's being like rather rude to them. Whether or not you believe it, there's a way. And whenever he makes a dig at Ed or something and says like, keep it civil. And it's like, sir, you're not keeping it. Like, you're not being mature right now either. So I don't know if you have the ability to make that, like.
Discernment.
Yes.
That call.
Yeah. Fucking meanie.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
From the host of the popular podcast, The Only One in the Room, Stash by Laura Cathcart Robbins is a propulsive and vivid memoir about the journey to sobriety and self-love amidst addiction, privilege, racism, and self-sabotage. Best-selling author Holly Whitaker calls it an irresistibly delicious story, and MacArthur Foundation fellow and best-selling author Kiese Lehman says Stash is emotionally riveting. Buy Stash by Laura Cathcart Robbins now, wherever books are sold.
As if the McCrispy couldn't get any better, Bacon and Ranch just entered the chat. The Bacon Ranch McCrispy. Available at participating McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
And so while all that was happening too, with the like interview with the Warrens and stuff, I believe right before that we got a little snippet of the Peggies. They're both named Peggy.
They're both
right?
named Peggy. Yeah.
Okay, that was very confusing for me. She's like, I'm rubbish, Peggy. And then she was like, no, you're not, Peggy. And it was like, are you saying like I am now a rubbish version of myself, Peggy? And then I was like, oh, no, they're both named Peggy. That's confusing. It was confusing.
I think it was supposed to be a little cute, like lightheartedness.
Yeah.
Probably in that moment as well. Give it a little levity.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, you're right though. It was a little jarring. But they are talking to each other and they are kind of discussing how it's been a little tough lately for our Peggy Hodson, and how the dad, left them and
hasn't paid any child support.
It's been very hard for the kids, especially Janet. I think she mentions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have the watering machine, the washing machine breaking at this moment. So it's kind of like it sucks for her because like on top of everything going on, like, and she thinks like Janet's acting out because of that whole situation with like this cigarette,
smoking,
which wasn't even a real thing. That kind of is like the last straw for her, and so it just breaks. But that's kind of
It's
important
like
because it comes
whenever
into
it kicks you when you're down, as they say later.
Yeah.
And when
Right.
things can go wrong, they
get
will.
worse. Yeah. And so that does come into play though later because we'll find out. But yeah, like that's kind of
I
intergoing
don't
with
understand how it got that flooded though.
same. Yeah, I don't know.
At that point, like you shut off your water main.
I don't.
But I guess you can't call someone, and so it's like.
I don't know.
But how? Like, can you imagine that water bill? Like with your basement being like flooded,
and then
waist
it's flooded.
deep?
Yeah, and it's a basement, and then you have to like, I pay for them things that suck all that water out and get it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what else do you do? Like,
I guess you can open the door.
Oh, they did have but I don't know
But it
because
was up some stairs, and
yeah,
then you had
it
to
wouldn't
walk
go.
down
It wouldn't go
into
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It wouldn't go out.
Open all
that was
the
like concrete
doors and window and hope that eventually it dries up. But it was clearly they all had coats on, so it's not summer. Yeah.
No. But yeah, they end up. I think this was instrumented at the same time with that dude on the TV. I called him a schmuck. And then we're back at the house, and we have, I think, the little boys playing with the Crooked Man.
Yeah, Janet
toy.
and Billy are singing the creepy ass Crooked Man song.
Yeah.
There was a crooked man, and he had a crooked hat. He led a crooked life, and I don't know. Had a crooked bat. That's not right.
Something like that though, along those lines. And this little boy Jimmy loves his biscuits. Billy. I keep wanting to call him Jimmy. And then it's nighttime again. They are.
Oh, and his mom gives him more biscuits. And she's like,
"That's
don't eat too many before bed because you'll wake up and get thirsty in the middle of the night." Which
he does.
Fucking Billy didn't listen because he had to get up and go get some fucking water. And he looks out the window. And the fucking swing set, only one of the swings is moving. Which is like...
He thinks that's a little weird. He's looking at it too. He's like, huh.
Because that's not
normal.
Possible.
We have Janet dreaming, I believe at this point, or something kind of like a dream.
Yeah, she's having a nightmare. Basically, and sits up, and then she has a conversation basically with herself. And
the old demon thing is basically like, this is my house.
And she's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And then they're going back and forth. So she's talking in demon voice, Bill voice, but then also her own voice.
Yeah.
And the whole time Margaret's just like, what the fuck's
yeah,
going
because her
on?
sister's noticing this all at the same time because she just like as well like casually puts her back into the bed as if the little girl wasn't like having a whole dialogue. And then that's whenever she hears not Janet's side of the room, like from her side of the room, something whisper, "This is my house."
Yeah, because she gets up after like kind of she just like lays back down, goes to bed, saying something like dying with Billy, and then she gets up and it's like screaming right over Margaret, "Leave Billy alone!" And then that was when she like. Janet's at her bed yelling, and then or she says, "Stay away from Billy," and then that's when Margaret hears, "This is my house," like from the other side of her bed, not from Janet's mouth, and that's creepy. And then that's when, she just coolly, like, calmly puts her back into her bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how do you
after all of that
go just,
yeah,
okay, I'm gonna go back to sleep. That was fine.
And she almost turns off the light, but she's smart. She doesn't. I wouldn't.
Good for her.
Mm-hmm. She leaves the light on.
And then we get Billy walking back upstairs, and we get our first sighting of the man in the chair.
That's right.
Which I like that. That part actually gives me a little bit of spooks.
Yeah.
It makes me go like, ooh.
Yeah. The creep factor.
Yeah. I like that one.
And we have him going up. He sees his toy, what is it, like a little truck?
Yeah, fire truck.
Fire truck, yeah. And he...
Oh, the fire truck. Whenever he gets to the top of the stairs and, like, first hits it.
Yeah.
I was trying to write the note about, like, we get our first, like, view of the guy in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And I, like, had just looked up right as he hit it. It made me jump. Like,
yeah, it's a little spooky part because it comes out of nowhere because it's so
like,
quiet.
Beep, boop, weep, boop, weep.
And when it's, of course, anytime you're trying to be quiet in the middle of the night, it's like the loudest things happen. But
and you're like, shut,
yeah,
shut.
But he hits the toy, goes off, which I'm surprised nobody else woke up.
I know.
And then multiple times during this movie, there are noises where I'm just thinking, like, why isn't anybody else waking up?
Yeah.
Like
literally 3 notes
the
down.
slams on the door, like. But yeah.
How the fuck is no one else waking up from that?
How is no one else waking up? Literally,
Yeah.
me too. And so he ends up sending the toy fire truck into his little toy tent. No, his little tent where he plays with his toys area. It's at the end of the hallway, essentially. And when he gets back to his bedroom, he's back in bed. But the
he keeps like he pauses a few times too, and like looks back at the hut, and he's like,
something's weird. Yeah.
But then he
like he feels a presence. I feel like something's like that. I always feel like something's watching me, you know. And then he gets in bed, and that's whenever the fire truck gets sent back like to the bedroom. And he's like, oh shit.
And it just stops at his door, and it continues to go off. And that's when I was like, really, like, Johnny is literally in the same room. How the fuck is he not awake right now?
Yeah.
And Janet and Margaret are just right down the hall.
Yeah.
And that fire truck, in order to get
they're
from
really close,
the hut, his little tent and stuff, all the way down to his room, the fire truck had to drive past his mother's bedroom. And so I was just like, what is this mom taking that's like making her pass out that much? Because I need it.
Well, because he tries to go to check it back out, right?
Yeah, he walks that thing back to the tent, and he's gonna put it back, and I'm like, no, stay in bed. You throw that. You wake up Johnny, and you say, "Come with me." And then this part does give me the creeps because when he gets back to the tent, he positions the fire truck to where it's as if it is driving into the tent, the front of the vehicle goes in. But then when it comes back out, it's turned around. Yeah. And it's pushed back out as if it was driving to him. So it almost felt like a little game.
Yeah, something was playing with him and toying with him.
But then a man just goes like, wah, screams.
I'm like, not the wah.
Yeah.
And so he runs up to his mom's room, obviously freaked out. And he's like, there's someone in my tent. And so that's when her mom was like, what the fuck? So she wakes up, she goes and she checks it out, but there's no one in there, obviously. But that's whenever she hears something downstairs, and it's a rocking chair rocking, and she sees Janet downstairs in the rocking chair. So at that point, we're just like
ugh, that's so gross. It creeps me out. And then, this was a beautiful transition that we got here.
Into the next day?
Yeah, because after Janet gets out of the rocking, like out of the chair just keeps rocking way longer than I assume it should have.
Yeah.
And then it was like, so he like used her body down there and then just stayed after she got up.
Yeah.
But then it just keeps rocking into the next day. As it pans out to you also get rain coming in, and then you pan to the window. Well, because I think at that
rain. Point, the mom was like, "Oh, you don't feel good. You don't feel well. You feels like you're sick."
She felt her forehead when she found it down there. She's like, "You're burning up." She's like, "Better stay home from school tomorrow."
Yeah.
And
it's raining, and then we have Miss Janet
alone.
in the TV in the couch in the living room watching TV,
and the channel keeps changing.
Yeah. Channel keeps changing to obviously what the old man wants to watch.
Yeah, and it was like something with the Queen at first, and then I believe we had Margaret Thatcher or something at some point saying something about
that's the news essentially.
Yeah, I don't know, but she was trying to watch some like what I imagine to be like, I don't know,
kids public TV,
Monty Python-esque kind of, British humor show.
Yeah.
But while you can kind of, she's like even changing the channels the first go around, I feel like you can kind of see him in the reflection before it even, like before the remote even goes missing. The first time she changes it back, if you look really closely, I feel like you can kind of see his outline. Yeah. In between the like channels changing. But then they change again, obviously. And this time the remote's missing.
Yeah. It goes gone.
Then the phone rings, obviously, to give you a nice little
little jump scare.
Yeah.
She goes to answer it. It's her mom. Her mom's just kind of basically being like, have you eaten? Have you, making sure she's taking care of herself? How's she feeling? And that's whenever Janet notices that the remote is on the couch.
Yep.
Yeah.
On his little chair.
Exactly. And
It's
she's
creepy.
like, that's weird. She goes, picks it up, puts it back on the table.
The camera angle, like pan in there, was pretty funny. There was a lot of them that were like,
yeah.
They'd like turn on the diagonal and then like zoom into their face.
Yeah. Because obviously
I kind of liked it.
It was like, she was like, that is not how that should have been.
Yeah. She's like, I clearly just, I didn't put it on that chair. Yeah.
And she then goes back to the couch. She puts the remote on the, what's it called? Dining room table, the coffee table in the middle. And the TV ends up switching its channel again, right? At that point?
The thunder like cracks and then the TV kind of goes out. It goes to like a static.
Yeah.
And so she's sitting there trying to mess with the little rabbit ears and it's like hitting the side of the TV, because that's what you do when, the vending machine doesn't work. You hit it.
You hit it.
And
anything, you hit it.
Yep. Computer, you go, wake up. And so she was doing that to the TV. And then the TV goes kind of black for a second and you can see him sitting in the reflection. And then she looks back and the remote's still suspended in midair and then it just topples to the ground.
Yeah.
And while she's sitting there looking back at, this is one of my favorite parts, looking back at the chair, all of a sudden from behind the TV, because she's at the TV, his little face comes out and he goes, my house.
Yeah. His beady glowing yellow eyes.
So funny. I love it.
Yeah.
My house. I actually did like that point. Now their faces in this one, like the nun's face, I don't really like. Especially there was one point, I think it was the first time.
You don't think they're that scary or?
No. Now the nun, whenever its mouth is just like pressed together, like its lips are in a thin line, terrifying. But the moment it's like, bloody fucking teeth come out and stuff, I'm like, okay.
More CGI'd.
Yeah. And then there were parts of his face that I don't know if it would have just been like I wish they wouldn't. I feel like sometimes they try to make things too scary looking. And then
he kind of gave me like
he looked like a lizard. Oh, like Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah. Yeah.
His eyes were just glowing like a complete golden, like honey.
Well, because those are Valak's eyes.
Yeah.
And it's being used by Valak.
But then also Valak also has like ice cold blue eyes.
I thought Valak also had the yellowy eyes.
In the painting and stuff, it was the ice, like blue eyes. And then the little kids in the beginning and stuff too, they were blue.
Oh, okay. My bad.
But who's to say Valak can't change eye colors too?
They probably can.
Yeah. And maybe because this was I don't know why, but I'm sure that they can change eyes because if they've got a passport, they probably got contacts.
And they do. And so we're, had that all happens, and then we end up back with Lorraine and Ned at their house, at his painting, I believe, right?
Fucking super chill, just painting the
a
fucking
demon.
Creepy fucking nun.
Yeah. Because Lorraine walks up and is like, oh, okay, that's,
and doesn't tell him immediately.
Yeah, I've seen that same demon.
I have seen this inhuman spirit.
We're probably in danger. And because she tells him in her own way, basically kind of in her own way, she doesn't want to take on any new cases.
Yeah, she says we need to stop taking them. But it's like, maybe explain why.
Yeah, because she doesn't.
Feels kind of important. I don't know. You're all about, we're a team. So like, fucking tell him.
And so
because then I feel like that would have made him be like, oh, fuck, yeah, no, hands off.
Maybe we shouldn't.
Nothing.
I don't want to die. I don't know. I don't feel like it would have stopped him, to be honest. He's got that whole mentality, like savior complex.
We gotta help everyone.
Yeah. And so that also cuts back to Miss Janet tying herself up because she doesn't want to sleepwalk. At this point, she thinks she's just sleepwalking. But she ends up like falling hard off this bed.
God, she was like fucking thrown on the ground. Like it kind of made my head hurt watching her face like hit the ground as hard as it did.
Because she's now on the floor, but then we have, I think, like a bang at the door. And she goes downstairs.
She unties herself and it's like, no, that was the whole point.
For real. She goes downstairs. She sees that the chair is rocking. And she's freaked out about this. So she goes back upstairs and she tries to like put the chair back underneath
this is
the
probably
door.
one of the scariest parts to me. This part made my skin crawl.
She puts the chair underneath the doorknob to like lock it in place.
Yeah, you know, like how you prop it.
Yeah.
At
And
that
then
angle, 45 degree.
she runs to her bed, puts her blanket over herself, right? And then that's whenever we hear the chair moving. But we can't see it because we're under the blankets with her POV. And then she looks over and the chair is
just in time for the chair to settle next to her.
Right next to her. And then her blanket just gets yeeted right off of her. And she's freaking out. She's screaming. And
because so the door opens, but she hides under that sheet for a hot second. And as she's under there and we're hearing the footsteps come up the stairs.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm like, girl, your flashlight is on. Like, we can all tell you're clearly awake. You're not hiding very well. But yeah, then her sheet rips off of her. And you can see in that moment too, as she's sitting up, she, like her right hand flies to her left shoulder.
Because of the.
Yeah. And we see later that he's like,
bitten her.
Fucking ew. Like he bit her.
You bit her on the what is that?
Feels like pedophile on your
shoulder, collarbone area.
This is your trap.
Your trap. Yeah. Bit her on the trap. Yeah.
Got her.
And at this point, I think we have Margaret even waking up because she's like, what the hell is going on? And they're both screaming in panic.
And then their beds
start shaking because Margaret's like, what the fuck? And so then they end up running to her mom's bedroom. They wake up the mom and she's like, there's someone in here. They bit me. She shows her the biting mark. And then the mom's like, what the hell? So she ends up running to their bedroom and she's like, what's going on in here? And she's looking around. That's whenever she finds the Ouija board underneath their bed. And that's whenever she's like, God damn it. If it's both of you just scaring each other and y'all can't sleep and I'm not getting any sleep, I'm going to like lose it. And then she's like, everybody just go to bed or shut up or something like that. And then that's whenever we have the armoire dresser thing getting thrown up against the door and shutting it, slamming it shut.
Like, that's
and then
a
everybody's like,
entity.
what the fuck? Yeah.
And it immediately shuts Miss Peggy up. She's like, oh.
Yeah.
And then the next scene is just
they're all the kids. They're all running to the neighbor's house screaming.
Yeah, running over to the Nottingham residence across the way, which is where Peggy and Vic Nottingham live. And they're thankfully taking them in. They're such good friends, believing them. Vic had gone to investigate and then
he searched the whole house.
Obviously called the police though, because he was like, well, they should know about this.
Yeah. We're going to let them handle it because he went and he didn't see anything. He said he searched the whole house. And then kind of as he just came back, that's whenever the cops were coming.
And so they get there, they're investigating, you know, kind of going through. They're like, no one's in here. But then as they get back downstairs and stuff, they hear a bunch of thuds happening upstairs. And then I guess also kind of coming from within the walls.
And that's whenever one of the cops is like, is it mice? And then that's whenever she's like, it's a big bloody mouse.
Bloody big mouse.
Yeah. And so we have the them looking, and then that's whenever that chair moves from down the hallway and back into the dining room, and that's when even the cops are like, well, okay, now that's weird. So they all walk out. They're like, we can't help. But the lady cop is like,
a little out of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, the lady cop is like, you know what? It feels like you should get in touch with one of my priests from my church. And so that's whenever the mom is kind of like, oh shit. And so that's whenever we cut back to the Warrens. God. We have Lorraine and Miss Judy just chilling
in their little parlor. Judy's playing with some like toys or something.
Yeah, and Lorraine is reading the Bible. Essentially, I guess as she's nodding off. Yeah. And as people do when they read the Bible. And so, sorry.
Funny.
And so then we have them going through that. And Miss Lorraine ends up having a vision, dream sequence / type of thing, where she ends up seeing.
She comes to.
She comes to from it. Yeah, and she finds Judy is gone.
Or what we it feels like she comes to.
That's right.
Finds that Judy is gone.
Yeah.
And so it feels like it's a very real place to us, but
Yeah.
I think it is a premonition.
It's a vision, it's a dream
Yeah.
sequence, but it doesn't because it feels so real, because it feels like she was having one and then she came to, but it's really still the same vision sequence, because then she follows Judy into the hallway, finds her, and she's like, oh my God, Mom, do you know who that is? And then we see Valak down the hallway.
Who is that?
Yeah.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Great.
Okay.
Obviously, she sends Judy back though, and then she's like, "I'm gonna go look."
And then that's whenever
why? I don't know.
Yeah, and she goes into the
Little study
room that
area.
they have, office, and then the Glory to the Newborn King little hymn starts playing on the record player. She goes to turn it off. The lights go out.
And it was like
before
basically
that, she
right
saw
as
Valak's
she
painting.
looks at the painting of Valak that Ed had painted on the wall, because he hung it up. Like he was like, "This is great.
It's a masterpiece.
We should keep it in our house."
Because she didn't
always.
tell him that, like, I also saw that demon and it's gonna kill you.
And that's like giving it a direct portal.
Yeah. But they end up, communication is key. She ends up, the lights go off, and then that's whenever we see like the shadow walking around the room, and then it ends up coming towards the painting and takes a hold of the painting, and then it grabs it and it's coming alive, and then it comes off the wall and it starts charging at her. Yeah, literally. And she ends up falling back into the closet, but it is like in her vision being another room, which happens to be, I think, the basement again, right? She falls into the basement, the same one, and that's whenever she's like yelling at the demon and it's like, "What's your name and what do you want?" essentially. And that's whenever Valak is just making some really gnarly faces at her and screaming at her.
Yeah,
and
this was the part where the mouth I didn't really like, because all before that, like the way just the shadow walking across the room was fucking terrifying.
Really animating too much.
And even so like after she turns off the hymnal like choral music that comes on, and that is important, that music does play later on in the movie as well, same song, and like even when she's just looking back at the painting on the wall, you can see whenever she has the light switched on, and when it's off, like the eyes change.
Yeah.
And the eyes are glowing blue like they were at the beginning with the little boy. And the rest of the DeFeo kids. And then, so I don't know, that like all that was just so much creepier. And then the hands coming from behind the painting to grip it before it charges her was also terrifying.
Yeah.
That's so creepy. And then even as it's charging her, but then whenever it was, like at first it was charging her and then it opens its mouth and I'm like, oh, not as good. It just felt silly to me. It made me laugh. I don't know. And then, but yeah, it knocked her back. And then then the mouth gets even worse my notes go, charges her, LOL charges her, not the fucking mouth, back in the basement, the fucking mouth, eyes rolled. And
then she ends up there. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought they did so many other things well, and then I feel like they tried to make it scarier, but what they were doing was already really solid, and it passed the line from scary into like cheesy for me a little bit there.
I feel that.
It's same with like my whole.
You also don't like to like have things like.
Yeah, and I mean it was
more mysterious, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like exactly the same sentiment I had towards Bathsheba on top of the armoire. Because I mean, even at the end of the Conjuring 1, whenever we get that flash of Bathsheba, whenever Ed calls her name as he's trying to execute her, as she's got little April in her like grips, basically.
Yeah.
That like flash of Bathsheba, I didn't mind. That I thought was good because
it also gave me more
natural.
It also recalled to me to like the possession, The Exorcist with Linda Blair.
Yeah.
Like it gave that kind of type of style of possession. Yeah.
And I liked it. So that didn't bother me. And there are so many other instances with this nun. And I will say at the end of this film, whenever we're in the cross room is just what I end up referring to that room as, the girl's bedroom. I don't mind the nun's mouth there as much, except for when she calls its name and she's like, Valak, and it's like,
yeah. Which I can't be surprised because it told her its name. Yeah.
So funny. That little like head cock, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
It's so silly. Made me laugh. Anyways,
and so they're
so many parts of this nun was terrifying, and then that part just made me laugh.
it was too much.
But she's seeing Ed yet again
Camp. Yeah.
get impaled.
That's very scary. It's a vision. She wakes up and she's scratching all up into the Bible, cutting it up. Essentially, we learn later that she's doing something with it.
That one's yummy. Sorry, we're trying new Truly Margarita style.
That one is very good. It reminds me of summer.
I like it.
It's very summery.
It also kind of tastes like a flower. It gives me floral in the back of my throat.
The notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Floral right at the little top of my throat pocket. Anyways, yes, and she's scratching all in her Bible, and Judy. Oh, I almost call her Judith. It's like trying to, shake
wake
her awake.
up. Yeah, and I think like, oh my gosh, she's gonna stab her with these scissors, but no, she wakes up. She comes to, and that's when we were like, okay, it was just a vision. Like it wasn't even real, but it was real.
Yeah,
yeah,
felt pretty real.
Yeah. And then we cut to the Peggy Hodgson talking to this guy, and he's talking about the disturbance at their house and how he wants to put them on television, basically, on the telly.
I'd rather not have my business spread all over the telly.
And that's whenever we cut to them putting their business on the telly, and we have them talking. It's like very docu style. We have them talking to the neighbors and stuff.
And I like the way that it goes into it. Almost feels like we're watching it on a little reel of film. It's got those rounded edges and with the like black on
editing.
The outside, so it felt very old and almost as if it was of that
us
time
watching
period.
it on their show.
And it was good. And then
a movie within a movie.
I did feel though as if some of these motherfuckers were lying. Like that lady.
She was floating.
I looked up in her window and
Janet was floating.
the youngest one, getting flung around.
And
it's like, bitch, no, you didn't.
I was like, Janet is floating, laugh my ass off. And they're talking to all these other people. I think
I love the way the cops walked up and the way that
right.
they were like walking and talking, and then it like flashes them to like. They cut the footage, but then it was like them right up on it and continuing their conversation.
Because they're like, oh, yeah, we went to the house.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool editing.
Yeah.
There, even though some of it felt really cheesy, that was like, I was like, damn, that was a good call, director of this documentary.
Yeah.
Which I know is just the director.
Fake documentary. Yeah. And so we have them trying to talk to Janet and Margaret, and they're asking Janet all these questions, and they're asking about her, about the old man that she's talking to.
And this transition we go, like we see it starting on that documentary, like film series Real, and then we transition back to like real time in that moment
as they're filming it. Yeah.
Which was cool as well, I thought.
And they're asking her to ask to it, or talk to the spirit essentially, but she ends up becoming possessed by the old man at this point.
Her growling and stuff.
Yeah, and he starts talking through her to the people, and that's whenever
and I'm talking.
We're talking to Dr. Morris, I believe, that guy's name, or Mr. Morris, but he's
Gross.
Like Gross.
Maurice Gross.
Yeah, that's right, the Gross
with an E.
Dr. Gross. And that's whenever they're talking about he's asking them like, what is your name? This isn't your house, because the spirit keeps saying this is my home. And then he's like, do you want to know a name? Let us know your name. He's like, knock, knock. And he's like, Bill, 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 Bill. And he keeps repeating Bill.
And I just was going, Bill, 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 like
Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill Nye, the science guy.
That was all I could think of when I was hearing that.
Oh, man, Bill Nye.
So it was making me kind of laugh a little bit. Did I see something recently where at the end they're like, Bill Nye, like my mom slept with Bill Nye, and then they were like,
my mom slept with Bill Nye too. I don't know.
I don't know, but then they're basically just saying like Bill Nye's got a huge dick.
Oh, I have no idea.
Maybe that was on TikTok.
I have no idea.
I don't know where I was. Maybe I just dreamt that.
Might have.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, we know this is not Bill Nye. This is Bill Wilkins, as he mentions.
My name is Bill Wilkins.
72 years old.
I come from the grave.
Come from the grave because I was blind and had a hemorrhoid. No, not a hemorrhoid, a hemorrhage. And that's whenever we get to know a little bit more about him. And
he says he died in the chair in the corner.
Yeah. Very scary, spooky stuff. And that's whenever we have them talking to him for a while, and then
he says he likes to hear them scream.
Yeah, because they're asking him essentially why you're here messing with the family. He's like, I like to hear them scream. And then I think that's pretty much it, because then she gets unpossessed, and then the mom is like, oh my God, Janet. And
well, she had said that I think before, and then that's when she was like, Janet, and then she was like, shut up, you old cow.
Yeah, that's right.
Miss Peggy. Poor Miss Peggy.
Yeah. She was just trying to be a good mom. But that's whenever I think at some point too we have the Crooked Man. I think right after that, because her mom, Peggy made Janet biscuits to help her feel better after all that shit that had really gone through her being exploited. Essentially,
Billy brings them some biscuits.
That's what it is.
I think. And then at this point they're staying over at the
friend's house, other Peggy's house,
the Nottinghams. Nottingham. Vic and Peggy Nottingham.
And so they're staying there, but that's whenever we have the little boy getting visited again by the Crooked Man, because he hears a noise or something, but he goes and follows all the way out back to, like, I guess, little sunroom area.
Yeah, and we had seen earlier, like the first time, whenever they ran over to the Nottingham's house originally, that their dog, Baron, whenever they taught him to ring this bell whenever he wants to go out. And so Billy awakes and hears this little bell being rung, so he's like, oh, like, is it Baron? And that's what you can assume as well, right. Is that he's going to find Baron, and he looks at the front door, no one's there. And then I guess there was also a bell on the back door, as we find out, as he walks and goes to that little sun porch and finds Baron sitting there by the door. But I fucking forgot that this happened whenever I was watching it again. I literally watched this like 2 weeks ago with Andrew as well, and then I watched it again today.
Gotcha.
But I think I had fallen asleep by this point, as you do. It was a little bit long.
It's a long movie. Yeah.
So I got
and if you already watched it,
on the couch.
Yeah, I feel
fell
that.
asleep.
But yeah, no, the Crooked Man starts coming up.
The
and
fucking dog.
Spooking.
It came out of Baron.
Yeah, it came out of the dog.
Or I guess it was.
It was the
pretending
dog.
To be Baron. Yeah.
It's just the way that the body kind of like, it's like kind of not claymation, but like stop motion. No, animation.
I was like, this looks very claymation. That's what I put. Which was cool.
Yeah.
It gave very claymation vibes. But yeah, the way that it kind of came into, it was like a skinwalker or something taking on its form or breaking out of its form. It was very disturbing.
Showing its true form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're getting the Crooked Man song, but now it's changing. And you're like, the way that he was chasing him down too. And then Billy thankfully gets back to the living room and is like screaming. But and then then
he goes back into what were you gonna say?
Well, but the song like starts changing, and it's no longer like as wholesome as it was on their weird little crooked thing. But yeah, it's like saying that now he's spiraled into a crooked hell, and it's like kind of getting distorted. And you're seeing the shadow. It's still his shadow coming down the hallway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just little old Janet emerges from the corner though, and it's like,
and they're all witnessing this at this point.
Yeah.
The parents,
even the Nottinghams.
The Nottinghams.
They're downstairs at this point.
And so she's saying all her little spiel, talking as the Crooked Man, and then that's whenever the rack, what's it called?
Like
the
fireplace cover
gets
gate.
thrown across the room, almost hits Mr. Vic Nottingham.
Yeah.
And then just like gets thrown so hard into the wall, it looks like it's literally stuck in the wall.
It's like lodged in that little corner shelf. And so that thing would have literally like sliced through his body,
killed him, because it was thrown with such force.
Yeah.
Fucking Janet.
Oh, and then poor Janet's like foaming at the mouth now,
like having a seizure or something. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
And that's then of course, like, obviously Peggy's like, somebody call an ambulance, call a doctor. And then we get back now, and it transitions us to sitting with the Warrens, sitting down with the priest from the first movie as well.
Who's showing them the footage of what happened with, well, not footage, but an audio recording of Janet's voice, the old man's voice coming through Janet, and he's like, what do you think of that?
But like hadn't told him yet that it was through Janet.
And Ed is like, oh, it sounds like he's been
very confused. He sounds very confused, like, how old is this? Or like, what's wrong with this man or something? And he was like, the voice you just heard is coming from an 11-year-old girl. And they were like, what the what?
Yeah. And so, yeah, they're getting told about that. And that's whenever they're reluctant to take on the case, especially Lorraine. And so that's whenever we cut to, like, I think their house. And that's whenever Ed told
and the church
Lorraine,
is reluctant to take it on
That's
because it's being
true.
referred to as England's Amityville.
That's right. And it has a lot of press around it.
The Amityville case did, in real life, come out a lot of, there's still so many things you can read about the Amityville case and the Warrens and what came out and how the Lutz family was doing it for money.
Yeah.
And that's something, of course, again, we can get into in our live show. But
and that means you all have to come out.
That's right.
October 22nd.
That's
live
right.
show. Don't forget, you can get your tickets, $15. It's at Neckus.
Nexus.
Nexus.
It's a Nexus.
I can't
Petition
talk.
to change the name.
It's a Neckus.
Well, you had said Tixits and then Neckets. So you had switched the tickets and Nexus.
I did.
Your brain was there.
It was there.
It had all the right
Sometimes-
components.
Yeah.
Just a little jarbled.
Ugh.
You had it.
It
You
all
did a great
gets
job.
jumbled in there, jumbled.
But
yeah.
so that's why the church is hesitant to go out there because they're worried to take on anything that might be a hoax. Because obviously it doesn't look good if the church is like believing things that can be
that aren't real.
proven.
Disproven. It shows like we're all, I don't know.
And so
gullible.
they're basically asking them to send them out in their place to kind of check it out and vet it for them because they trust the Warrens.
And that's whenever Lorraine doesn't want to do it, but Ed is like, come on, when have we ever like run from a fight? Like, let's go do this. We're just going to observe. We're not going to actually do anything. The minute we see anything that's like concerning, we report back and we're done with it. But I'm just like, right, you're just going to observe. Like, that's not
there's
believable.
No way in hell. Y'all aren't gonna. We know y'all.
Yeah.
And this is where she does tell him, like, I had the same premonition of your death 7 years ago in that exorcism. And then as well with this demon.
Yeah.
And then you drew this inhuman spirit as well. Like we have both seen the same spirit, like something bigger
it's a warning.
is at work
She's
here.
basically saying to not do this.
Yeah, exactly. And that was when I guess none of that conversation mattered because then we're having Dr. Maurice Gross pick them up and take them to the Hodgson
residence, which we see that the everyone but Janet and her mom are staying in the regular house. Everyone else is across the street at the neighbor's house. So that's whenever we also have them going and kind of giving a tour to Mr. Ed and Lorraine Warren of the house. They see the crosses all over in the girls' room. They kind of check out everything. We have Lorraine talking to Janet on the swing set, and she's kind of trying to gain her trust, have Janet open up to her a little bit, and they kind of start talking about,
tells her
Lorraine's
how she
life
saw
a little
an
bit.
angel as a child over a little boy and stuff, and then she was just watching the angel like stroke the boy's face, and then all of a sudden it turns to look right at her, and then none of the nurses or her parents, no one believed her. And but then she said, it took a long time, but she finally found someone who did. And she says, and you know what I did next?
I married him. Yeah,
that's right. And so like she's saying, like, this is where we get the line of it could be just one person, but that one person can make a whole world of difference, basically. Because
Janet is also voicing how like she's tired of feeling like she's isolated at this point because everyone's afraid of her because of everything that's going on with her. And that's when obviously Lorraine is like, well, the spirit wants you to feel that way. Obviously you were at your weakest when you feel you were most alone and like there's nothing, like you lose all your hope essentially.
You're most vulnerable.
And so that's why she wants her to open up to her. And that's whenever they start talking. And then we have Peggy back with Ed in the house with Dr. Gross. And he's asking about, excuse that, guys, her husband, like her ex-husband, essentially. Like, is there a man in the house? Or she's like, no, there's an ex. And then he's like, oh, okay. And I forget, he asked us, like, is there any chance of reconciliation or something like that? I don't know. But she's like.
Yeah, she says, he does ask, is there any chance of reconciliation?
Yeah,
she just says no. And then she says something of, like, he took all the music the day he left. And it just reminded me of Bye-Bye, Miss American Pie.
Oh.
The day the music died.
Oh.
And he was like, oh, it can feel that way. And she's like, no, he literally took every single fucking record.
And his record player. And right before that, though, because he asked something and she's like it's a quick whip where she's just like, he left with the the horror, like a court, like
he
on the
had twins with the lady down around the corner,
around the block. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I thought it was funny. And so, anyways, yeah, they're all talking.
But that's how we figure out that they bought this house. Her husband had bought the house,
that's
and
right. They
all
can't
the
leave.
furniture came in with it.
Yeah,
because then he was basically like, "Where did this chair come from?" kind of thing, and she was like, "Well, we bought all of the furniture with the house."
And basically, they can't move either because like she's don't have no money.
Yeah.
This is where they're stuck at. Yeah, it's
Always
another
the case.
essentially. Yeah, I was about to say just like the parents in the movie beforehand. And so yeah, they're essentially then getting all this, like, it's kind of like reconnaissance. They're learning all of the information about the house, about what's transpired so far. And they start talking to Janet, I think.
Yeah.
Because at this point they want her to talk to them, but she they want her to like take the water, to have water in her mouth.
Yeah, to prove that it's not like a ventriloquism kind of thing, because they've said like as this voice is coming out of her, sometimes her voice isn't necessarily moving, but we all know, like, I mean, the whole idea of ventriloquist dolls, like you can still speak without moving your mouth. So they said in order to really, really, really prove it, they wanted her
to do it with water in her
hold this
mouth.
water in her mouth. Yeah. And before that too, Lorraine had asked Janet if it's ever said anything to her.
That's right.
That like has just been
just
to her.
speaking to her.
Yeah, and not coming through her.
Yeah.
Because she asked, like, whenever it's talking to you, does it feel like it's coming out of you? Do you know when it's going to happen? And she says it more feels like it's coming from behind me, as if it's using me. And then she asked, like, has it ever said anything to like just you? And she was like, it says it wants to hurt you. And she says, well, when did it say that? And she was like, right now. And it's like, oh! But yes. And then they're in the chair.
That's right.
And then this is a little sketchy, like I'll admit. And we understand later why Valak chose to do this. But she puts the water in her mouth and is like just sitting there. They're all staring at her. And she spits it back out and is like,
it won't talk to me while y'all are looking at me like that.
Yeah,
right now.
with all these faces on me.
And so they're like, it's being shy. Wasn't shy before, but okay. And so they turn around. And that's whenever she ends up taking the sip of water back in her mouth. And we have Ed turning back around, and the old man decides to show up because we can hear like it happening.
The lights,
the lighting flickers,
growling,
the growling. And that's when we have him being like, Eddie, Edward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, he whispers or like says, here I come. And then Ed is like, do you know my name? And he's like, ha ha ha, Eddie, Edward.
Yeah. And he's like, this is my house. And Ed is telling him to move on.
You can see, because we're really focused on Ed, but you can see the image of her in the background.
It's like a shadow.
And at this point,
silhouette.
Her blurred like form starts getting distorted, and it starts morphing into that of Bill Wilkins. And it becomes more clear. And like, cause then at this point, it's like clearly him now.
Yeah.
Whenever Ed asks, like, are you a heaven man or something?
Yeah, because he's telling him to move on, and then the Bill is like, I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
And then that's whenever Ed is like, well, it's just better to move on and go to heaven. He's like, I'm not going to heaven. I'm not a heaven man. And then that's whenever he also starts saying,
help
screaming,
it, let go,
help it, let go. Yeah. And that's whenever they're kind of like, okay, I don't know what's happening at this point. And then it all kind of climaxes, and then it dies out, and then Janet spits out the water, and it's kind of done at that point. Everybody starts going to bed, I believe, and that's whenever we have Ed and Lorraine in their twin beds kind of chatting with each other about the night. He's like, I don't think I can sleep this far away from you. She's like, well, you're gonna have to. You're gonna have to.
Yeah. It gives you something to look forward to when we get home.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in Billy and Johnny's room, I believe. And he's asking her, like, can you sense anything? And she's like,
no.
I don't feel anything. She says, I can't see anything beyond their own fear.
There's a block, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she doesn't necessarily think it's a block at this point, just more so that she just doesn't feel anything, which is very purposely done by the demon.
Yeah.
It's essentially putting like a Wi-Fi, like cellular block on her reading, so she doesn't pick up that anything's there.
So she feels nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they, Janet's tied herself up to the bed again, and her mom's like, "Oh, I really wish you wouldn't do that." She's like, "It makes me feel better. Like I won't go anywhere.
At least I know I'm not going anywhere."
Yeah, bitch, you're gonna untie yourself anyways. And so
real.
And then
every other time
we hear whistling in the middle of the night.
It's like a little nursery rhyme, which is creepy.
And Janet wakes up on the ceiling.
And she's just
not even in the bedroom that she was in though, like the living room ceiling.
Yeah.
Right above on
like
the opposite side of where the chair is.
Yeah. She's like it's like basically I feel like in the little passway
between
from
the kitchen
the living
and
room and the kitchen. Yeah. And she's just like fucking stuck to the ceiling. And we watch him. You can see him rocking in the chair. And then he just kind of stands up. And does it kind of glitch there? Like does his body kind of go like, yeah, creepy. And then he just continues to walk up. You can hear him walking up the stairs. And of course,
and she's freaking out.
She can't move.
Yeah.
She's stuck to the fucking ceiling. Where'd he go?
He's going upstairs.
And then you hear him get like right above her.
Because, and then it ends up like bringing her into the room above, which is so weird.
Yeah.
But she ends up in the room, the girls' room, which has all the crosses on the wall, but I'm calling it like the devil room now.
Yeah, I call it the cross room.
And so one of the cross starts turning upside down.
And then all of them start inverting. They're all going upside down. And it's creepy to just sit there and watch. And there's fucking tons. There had to be at least like 100 crosses on those walls.
And some of them look like they're made out of like metal and like if they were to get like flung off the wall,
kill you. Yeah.
And so they are all doing that. That's whenever we have kind of the suspense building up, and then the old man comes out of fucking nowhere and starts charging at her. So yeah, I honestly thought it was pretty good. Like in a like.
I didn't mind it here. No, actually, I think I liked it almost better behind the TV, and then here I was kind of like. Not as
took
much.
You out of the element.
Yeah, but
wasn't as scary. But he does come up to her and starts attacking her. And that's whenever we have, I think her mom starts waking up finally at this point, and like hears her screaming. Yeah, she's screaming.
You're like, oh my god.
Yeah, and the mom tries to get into the room, but obviously she's in the locked room with that like padlock that was on there, and it's at this point where the mom's freaking out like. And I'm like, obviously you can't get it open unless you have the key, which she knew what the key was.
You're not going to be able to open. I mean, she's panicking.
Yeah.
And so she's clearly like just thinking that for some reason she'll be able to just rip this chain apart.
She actually does see Bill Wilkins' face. Like,
yeah. And that part I will admit was scary because Janet's like trying to like poke her little head through the door and is like, Mommy, help me. And like screaming and stuff. And then you just see a hand wrap around her mouth, and it's like this gray hand. And it pulls her back, and then you just see him.
But finally,
like half his eye, like half his face peering through the door, and that was creepy. I was like, "Ooh, nope."
And then we have Ed and Lorraine running up as well, and he's like yelling at her to go get the key. She goes to get the key. They finally get the door open. They walk in, and just in time because Janet is getting choked out by these curtains, and they end up getting them off of her. But at this point, it's kind of like. At this point, they've seen something happen. The mom was even like, I saw him in here. Someone was in here with her.
And of course, by the time they get in, all of the crosses have gone back to normal now. And Lorraine just sees the last one kind of settling back into its place. It's kind of going like you had held it upside down and then you let it go. So it's like kind of pendulum swinging until it settles completely in its spot.
So we cut to the next day and we're back with the group of, Ed, Lorraine, the
Dr. Gross, the
skeptic lady. They're all kind of talking about whether or not this is real or not, if it's a hoax or not. It might be a hoax. It might not be. There's kind of, it can go either way at this point because
the skeptic lady's saying like, it's pretty odd how you had to turn around for her to speak with the water in her mouth.
All
like
the
she
information
could have
that
spit it out.
she told you was public information as well.
And it's like, okay, but no, I'm sorry. This is still like the early 80s and stuff. Like this little fucking 11-year-old Janet's not going and finding this much. I don't know. Maybe she is, but
also at this point, just like the Lutzes, like people have done it. People like profit off of claiming a false story.
Well, yeah, and especially if they're leaning into the fact if Peggy is in on it as well and doing it with her. But yeah, they're kind of going back and forth. The Warrens still aren't quite sure what to believe.
Yeah.
But I feel like they kind of are more erring on that side, especially once the lady makes the comment of like, I don't know what's worse, the demons or the people who try to like
make money off of
off the people who do believe in them. And then Lorraine's like
the demons.
The demons.
Mm-hmm. Always.
The demons.
Yeah.
And so I feel like at that point she kind of lost a little bit of like, okay.
Yeah.
And they went back, and then this is where they come into the home and
they bring the family all together. And that's when Ed is explaining to them, like, y'all have to protect each other, like protecting each other from a bully.
Yeah, they liken the spirit to a bully. And they're asking, like, Lorraine's like, have any of you ever been bullied? And they were like, Billy gets bullied by Peter all the time. And they're like, and you guys stand up for him, right? And they're like, yeah. And they were like, right now, this spirit's bullying Janet. So you have to gang up on him. And I'm like, yes,
I don't know if that's the best. Yeah.
They're children. I don't know how much they're going to be able to accomplish.
No, because like you said, they're children and there's their spirits. You can't just gain up on a spirit, I feel like. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
But I mean, I guess that is like kind of a way, an easy way of explaining it, a very rudimentary.
And so that way they're not as afraid, and so that way they know also, like, I guess that's also good, like, stay together and
like, have a chance of winning.
And you're stronger in numbers as well as you would ever be alone, essentially.
Exactly.
But yeah, Ed starts playing. I feel like this is for some reason, like, the actor just knows, Patrick Wilson just knows how to play the fucking guitar, and so we're like, hey, we need 3 extra minutes of footage. Start playing the guitar.
Sing this,
yeah. But it is.
It also does give them their ending scene.
Yeah, I can't stop falling in love with you, right?
Yeah,
can't help falling in love with you.
They had mentioned, like, or whenever the mom said he took all the music, like the kids used to love sitting around listening to his Elvis records and stuff. So they had brought them an Elvis record to play. But then the record player wouldn't play. So then he was like, whose guitar is that? And, he then gives a little Elvis impersonation. And then singing, I can't help falling in love with you.
Well, all while Lorraine is looking on.
The relationship was very cute.
Yeah.
They're looking at each other, and I was like, yeah.
And so then we have them.
Everyone singing is very happy. It was so sweet.
Yeah, it's a nice little light moment for all the shit that they're going through and about to go through.
Yeah.
And we have them the next day setting up to record because they're going to essentially try to get some proof that there is a haunting or someone is possessed, something is going on in the house.
It made me laugh so much whenever Ed held that giant ass fucking camera on his shoulder and he was like, this is so light. And it's so small and light. And I was like, that's a massive fucking camera. But of course, obviously that was the whole point of it. It's like the times and how we finally did evolve to get it so small, but it just made me laugh.
It was
now
funny.
We've got cameras and glasses and shit and like little micro cameras you can put anywhere.
And so they're looking into the whole house. That's whenever we had Ed talking to Janet, excuse me, about like how he's essentially fixing like a pipe at this point or whatever, I believe. But she's talking to him about like her fears and how he's telling her she needs to face her fears. And he tells her the cute little story of how like
he had a monster under his bed, but his dad
wouldn't
basically
believe him.
Whenever he ran away from it, his dad was like, well, go in there and face it.
Yeah.
And did. And then he took his little cross and was like, no, you get out or God's going to beat you up, basically.
And then he also started talking about how like he said that nobody believed him or something until he found that person. You know who that person is or what he did? And she was like, you married her. And he's like, you must have heard this story before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all very cute. And then we have them, he starts going to the basement because he's trying to figure out the whole problem with the plumbing. But then he's like, oh yeah, what's going on in the basement? Oh yeah, because he tells, what's her face? Peggy that he's gonna fix it. And she's like, oh, pish posh, you can't do that. That's too much.
She's like, it's a mess down there.
And he's like, oh no. And he goes in and he's like, oh shit, this is
a mess.
This is a mess. Yeah.
It's literally like flooded. It reminds me of and It Too. Remember? It gives me that.
Yeah.
So creepy.
Yeah, and so all while Lorraine is talking to Dr. Gross outside,
and she's kind of calling him out in the
basement. Yeah, because it kind of seems like he's only in it to like be a part of something, and he doesn't necessarily care for the family.
Yeah,
but then he's.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
no,
he just explains how his daughter passed away in a crash, and it would just help if he knew that she was somewhere.
Or that there was something else out there,
beyond this.
And so they Ed is in the basement and he's trying to fix a pipe thing, and he's all the way across the way while Peggy's shining a light on him. But that's when she noticed that there's another spirit or something, a shadow behind him.
Yeah,
and
like
it's essentially
it's
the old man.
Yeah,
it's Bill Wilkins. But
the whole time Peggy's just fucking sitting there shining the light. Like, she doesn't say anything. She just kind of like moves the light over and is like, what is
that? And then finally she's like, there's something behind you. And as soon as he turns back around,
right as it's on
him. And then as soon as he turns around to the light, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And she ends up getting like taken into the water, I believe.
Yeah, because she like was like
dipped over trying to look. Yeah.
And then she looks down, and all of a sudden he's like in the water below her, and then
my house,
and pulls her
gives
in.
Gives you a Amanda Bynes show. My house. And so
bites her.
Yeah, bites her, and that's whenever we notice that it's the same.
Have only like, wasn't she like missing 2 teeth?
I don't know.
Maybe
remember.
It was a callback to the Amanda Bynes show.
Maybe. And
Amanda,
she
please.
is gets bitten by it. It's this. We see that this little like old. What's it called? It's like denture thing, like a fill. It's only 2 of them. But it comes out of the water, and they're like, oh, this matches like the same bite that Janet had, and how it was missing
the 2
teeth.
missing teeth.
Yeah, essentially
from the bite marks.
That's what it is.
Which is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. And so they everyone's freaking out at that point.
And while this is happening, Janet is like looking and seeing something in the kitchen.
Oh, that's right.
And this is where Johnny's like,
we have to go stand up to it. Yeah.
And he just fucking walks in willy-nilly.
Goes in, and that's whenever he sees the knives are just like all stabbed on the table upright, which is not a good sign. And then the other kids scream, and he goes to look back in the hallway, and he's like, what up? And then Janet's fucking teleported because they're like, Janet was here, and now she's not. And then he looks behind him, and she's right there all like
and has the one
evil
knife that he removed from the table.
Yeah. And then the door slams, and then chaos ensues essentially, and everybody's screaming. We have everybody run back in. Nobody can get into the room that they're in, and then that's whenever we finally have them opening up the door and getting in, and they finally find what was the boy?
Johnny. They finally find Johnny like crying in the cabinet, but Janet is still
not
missing.
In there. Yeah,
they can't find her, and then until they go out into the hallway, and then she's like in it. I assume it was like a breaker box. It looked like it had like the hot water heater in it, but it was almost like it was a cabinet that was only just for the control panels. It was so weird because
how does someone get in there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The way she was in there was not physically possible.
Yeah.
She was contorted, and the way that her body was in there was not a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it seems like, oh fuck, we've got plenty of evidence like that. This is clearly something's going on here.
Yeah.
But Miss Skeptic Lady comes in, and she's like, I've got it all on camera.
Yeah, and it shows that Janet was throwing stuff around and like bending spoons and doing all this stuff in the kitchen the whole time, which kind of explains like for that, like, oh, it shows like she was making it up. This is all a hoax. Like, you know, we're all getting duped.
Makes you question.
It does a little bit.
At
Although
point,
I was thinking at this point, but like there are things that are literally like beyond her physical strength to move as well.
Yeah, and well, just the way that everything was shot with all the stuff getting thrown around, it looked like this. It was so much more like I'm imagining everything that she was sitting there doing. Felt like it would have taken 30 minutes for her to trash that kitchen.
An hour, the way how fucking trashed it was.
Yeah.
Like
by
literally.
herself as an 11-year-old girl, like throwing the table, sitting there bending all the stuff. Like I don't even know how. I don't know if I'm going to go home and try to bend a metal spoon now. Not like just my normal spoon. I'm going to bend like a big one.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not. I don't have enough money to buy it.
Do it. I think you could still bend it, but still, like that's just like
it would probably take me it would take me like a minute
for the amount of destruction that was in that room.
And she's
even
11.
if it was her, and even if she is strong enough to move stuff around, it just still wasn't enough time to cause that much of destruction.
Exactly, and then it still doesn't explain
how she then teleported
she got in there
into that thing, and like where was the time to do all that? But they end up.
I mean, she's living on Michael's time,
and it's very fast because at this point they're all like, "All right, pack up the bags, everybody, screw it, fuck it, we're going home."
Yeah, they were all.
There's not even. It's just it's like literally 10 minutes later, and they're all just like, everybody's leaving.
Yeah, and then her
like,
siblings are kind of like it almost seems like they're even questioning her.
Yeah,
and then she's like,
because they're like, "Why did you do it?" And then that's whenever she has to be like looking at them, and she looks like so fucking like terrified. She's like, told me if I didn't do that and made them go away, it would all kill y'all. Yeah.
And she's like, I had to do it to like save y'all.
Yeah.
And then, so then we get to basically everyone's leaving.
Because I love even how it's so sad how Janet's even looking at Ed and Lorraine when they're leaving, because it even feels like she's just like, no, but please really don't go. Like,
please.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but then Ed and Lorraine get onto
The bus.
bus, train, subway thing. And the rolls of tape fall out and they overlap with one another. And so Ed's like, I've got this idea. And he's like, listen to this one.
And listen to this one.
And then he's like, and listen to this one. And I was like, boy, like, how are you finding the exact time on the tape when these are recorded? But it's okay. I'll let you have it. It's a movie. And then basically saying the two garbled up messages that they got, because the other one, the first one was the like, help, it won't go or something. It let me or something, or
was
me.
The other one. They're both giving different parts of the same message, essentially.
Yeah. And we forgot to mention that while she was in that contorted state in that thing, she was yelling another like
part of it
coherent message. And but when you put the two together, it says, help me. It won't let me go. And then all of a sudden, Lorraine is like in this subway train car and is speaking now with Bill.
Yeah.
And the
Bill is letting her know that he just came back to find his family because he died and he can't find them now, and that now this demon is using him and is essentially kind of holding him against his will, using him in the same way that it's using Janet.
Yeah. And he's like, I don't really want to be here.
Yeah. And
he speaks in this riddle and he says, I'm given and I'm taken. I was there at your first breath. You didn't ask for me, but I'll follow you till death. And we come to find out later that it's a name. And so
they need to know the name in order to get control over this demon, just like how in the first one, Conjuring, they had to find out Bathsheba and call her by her name to, banish it.
And he's basically saying this to like give her a clue of like how they can win. But then like the nun, as he's like saying, but I'll follow you till death, all of a sudden Valak shows up right behind him, and then Lorraine kind of comes to, and she's like, the old man's spirit's just a pawn. She's
relaying all this information, and then so that's when they end up getting with that other dude. They're driving back. She starts telling them that about how they need to know the name, and then that's whenever they get back in. Ed is trying to get back in to the house, but he ends up getting like stopped because he's trying to go in through the window, but a sofa gets slammed up against the whole opening, and it throws him back.
And all before they got there, Margaret was being thrown around by Janet, and then Peggy sends all of them outside and was about to turn back in to go get Janet, and then they're locked out.
Yeah.
So now only Janet is in that house
by herself. Yeah.
And then like basically that
she's like fully possessed at this point too.
And yeah, we find out that the inhuman spirit like blocked Lorraine's sight and everything as she's driving up, and they're all trying to get in. Yeah. And the thing fucking blows Ed back.
Yeah. But that's whenever he realizes, or he recalls back about the basement. So he goes in through the basement. Of course he gets in, but then as soon as Lorraine is right behind him, the door slams behind her. It's like this whole little moment where it's like, please wait for me. Don't go. And he's like, nope, gotta go.
Gotta do this. I have to go save her.
Yeah.
And she's like fucking losing her mind because as you should,
she's worried about her. She's concerned for his safety. She thinks he's going to die.
Yeah.
And so that's whenever we have,
especially after she saw the lightning strike.
Yeah.
And the tree branch broke over, and that's the fucking
branch that was in the vision.
What she saw impale him.
And so that's whenever she has Vic or Vince, whatever his name is, the neighbor, he's trying to cut down onto the door with the hammer, or not the hammer, but the axe. She then remembers, she then remembers that she needs to remember the name of the demon. So she goes back to her car to look for her Bible.
And meanwhile Ed is breaking through the literal floor.
Yeah. And then geting burned by
the hot water nozzle, which I assume was right there next to the hot water heater, bursts and like scalds his face, partially blinding him.
Yeah.
And these shots were cool with him being like
partially
with
blinded.
The very blurry shots.
Yeah.
It was good because then it's almost that kind of, when it's so dark, and like what I like in the found footage kind of genre, where it's so dark and you really are dependent on the camera's light a lot of the time, and it's so scary when you see that. That was kind of giving the same vibe with these blurred shots. And then while that happens, we get that same music that played for Lorraine back in the study whenever she first had that, where Valak gave her
the
name. Yeah.
And so that's whenever we have him going through the whole house as well. He then, I think the Crooked Man at this point starts like creeping up around him and going through the house. Yeah, we got those long ass
fingers coming around a corner.
And then he hears Janet at this point, I think.
From like all over.
Yeah, literally everywhere.
Her voice is getting thrown.
And he starts speaking in Latin. He's basically essentially just like, he can't see anything. So he's just trying to throw whatever he can, trying to protect himself.
He just has his little cross necklace out in front of him.
Yeah. And that's whenever we have them going to, or it's Lorraine.
We go back to Vic and Lorraine. And he's like, I was like, at this point, I was like, Vic,
hurry up. Yeah.
Get that door down.
Some
get out of the way, let me do it.
Into it. But yeah, and so that's whenever, I think at that point, that's whenever she goes to get that the Bible thing, and that's when the lightning strike happens, and that's whenever she ends up going back into the house. She finally gets through that little thing that he was kind of cut enough for her to get in through. She goes in, she goes up, and that's whenever they're in the devil room, or as you said, the cross room.
Because now it's like it's do or die. Like she's seen like, oh fuck. That is like, he's gonna die. That's the same fucking stake I saw him get impaled with twice. And now she's like, and I know that this demon is like here. It's taken this blasphemous like thing to mock my faith. And so like this thing is coming for me, but like I know its name. So she's like, on a mission.
She's on that mission. She ends up getting in there. At this point, the Crooked Man's got Ed all the way up into the same room that
the way he burst through the wall and stuff too. That was pretty wild.
Scary.
Yeah.
And then we have them in there. That's whenever he sees Janet is right in front of the window, and she's about like to like kill herself,
perched herself to jump.
And he goes and like stops her just enough, but it's like narrowly. Then hanging on by a curtain.
Which of course, they're curtains. They're not meant to support whole human bodies. And so
two of them
they're
like
they're like slowly.
And Lorraine comes in just in time, but as soon as she enters the room, that's whenever Valak shows up, and he's in the corner, or they're in the corner. I don't know. And that's whenever they're right there. She's basically like saying like, leave them alone, like don't hurt them. And she's like, I know your name. Yeah. She's just like, Valak. You are Valak.
The defiler.
The defiler, the Marquis of Snakes.
The profane.
And that's whenever, like you said, Valak is just like, what? And then is just like, and then just starts like basically imploding on itself.
Yeah.
And then
like kind of going back into that little shadow and just like.
It reminds me very Lord of the Rings whenever the Witch King of Ingmar is just like stabbed, and then it just like whatever. But yeah. And everyone's okay. Because essentially she then runs up to catch Ed, and she pulls him back in. It was kind of a little anticlimactic.
It was, because I was like, then the thing kind of retreats back into the wall as she damns it to hell, and then it's like Lorraine catches him and everyone's saved. Yay!
Yeah, it's kind of
much
it.
Oh, okay, that was it. Okay.
Yeah. And so they everyone's saved.
Like I wish they would have made that time a little bit longer with Valak. Like,
yeah, especially because it was a whole big like.
I mean, I know it did have to be pretty quick, considering if we realistically wanted Ed to be hanging there from a.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. There could have been a different. I feel like we should have nixed the idea of there being like them hanging out of a window. It should have been like, just like the Vision, a basement scene with like something hanging out of there, and like maybe like Janet being like, I don't know. It could have been a bigger struggle.
Even if they blew up the window later. And it like kind of catapulted Janet backwards. Like there was this blast that happened like maybe from Valak, blasted Janet back. And like that's what broke the window, allowing Janet to pass through. And then fucking Ed,
and then after
on instinct tries to catch him. But then like, so all this stuff could have happened before the window even broke. And then it still could have happened with the window scene or whatever. And that happening there. But
just more Valak. More explosion.
Yeah, more stuff with Valak, with maybe the three of them in there. And like, I mean, even if we got like Janet and Valak like talking at the same time, like seeing that Valak is talking, like that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that could have been a really good way to give us more time with Valak.
Especially because it was such a like big buildup.
And then I would have been fine if that scene was tacked on to the end of that. Like with Valak, like with Lorraine finally like being like, I know your name. And that like, or even if that like caused like, I know your name. And that's what caused the window to break open or something.
Yeah.
And then all that happened. And then she was like,
I just
Alec,
don't like the window scene at all. I think they should have nixed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's essentially, yeah, she ends up saving them. It cuts to paramedics now. What's her face is Janet is getting taken care of, looked at. We have Ed then talking to Janet because he's like, I don't know, something about her being like, I don't have just one angel, I have two angels.
Yeah, he gives her his necklace, basically, that his father had given to him. And he says, like, whenever you're older, give it to someone in need too. And then she says, I'm so lucky. And she looks at Lorraine and says, you said one person could change everything, but I've got two.
Yeah.
Referring to each of them.
Both of them.
And stuff.
And then we come back then to back to the Warren's house, and Ed is placing the Crooked Man toy back into...
And it does give us it gives us some little title card or those
about what
yellow
happened
text
after,
again. And it says the Enfield haunting is one of the most documented cases in paranormal history. And then Peggy apparently continued to live there
until she died.
And
in the
apparently
chair.
in 2003 she passed away sitting in a chair in the living room
in the corner,
in the same spot Bill Wilkins had died 4 years prior.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wanna
creepy
check that. But yes, back into the demon room.
And he puts up the little Crooked Man thing right next to the same Rory's toy that we saw from the Conjuring 1. And we also get a shot of Annabelle as well. And then we have them cutting to Ed and Lorraine back in the living room, and I think they're just kind of chatting, and it's kind of a little cute ending with them and Elvis playing again. It's kind of like a little callback, and that's how it ends, just on their faces. And that's the end of The Conjuring 2.
That's right. And then I do enjoy the kind of, as we're going out, we get to hear the playing of the actual recording with
the Bill Wilkins and Janet, the voice.
And it was pretty fucking wild. And he was basically saying, like, I died in 1961. And it's just really good. And then, of course, you're getting the images of the real family with, like, the people that they were played by. And then in between some of the images flashing on, like, we got a little flash of Annabelle's face. And it was just a very good ending sequence again. I really liked that.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I did have a few. I really like this website. This is what I used last time, the History versus Hollywood. So this was The Conjuring 2. And so remember how I had that real face and then the real face, like REEL.
Yeah.
And then real face. So it shows you like the
what
different
they actually
people
look like. Yeah.
And who like was portraying them. And it does have a bunch of different like facts about it. Like, yes, the knocking, like they did hear strange knocking coming from the walls. The knocking would fade in and out as it ran down the walls, supposedly frightened the family so much that they slept all in the same room with the light on. Vic Nottingham, a neighbor, claims that when he went to the home to investigate at the family's request, he heard a knocking on the wall and on the ceiling, leaving him somewhat frightened. And then the knocking can even be heard during this. It has a link to the Janet Hodson. I can't say.
Yeah, we know who we're talking about.
That was conducted in the home.
Yeah.
And so like the whole scene though with the dozens of crosses turned upside down, no, it says that was not a thing. In fact, checking Hollywood. The Conjuring 2 by comparing it to the real Enfield poltergeist case, we found no evidence that crosses turned upside down on the walls of the Hodgson home.
We found no evidence that they did not.
So it could have happened.
Right.
But it says, in fact, like the upside down cross has not traditionally been a symbol of evil. It's the cross of St. Peter, who was crucified upside down because he felt that he was not worthy to be crucified in the same way as Jesus. But like Peggy did actually go to the Nottingham house for help, which is like obviously, otherwise I feel like they wouldn't really be, that wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
But then there was also, so then like this is like several photos of, because they had that photo of Janet levitating from the bed.
Yeah.
And that's where the skeptic lady said something about like it looks like she's jumping. And they had the photo at the end with side by side with the actual photo that happened. But basically it says in the finds herself pinned against the ceiling and stuff. This is a complete exaggeration of what allegedly happened in real life during the Enfield haunting. Photographs of the real Janet Hodgson levitating only show her a short distance above her bed. This, coupled with the way her body is positioned in the air, has led many people to believe that she simply jumped from her bed, because it does look like that. The questionable photos were taken by Daily Mirror photographer Graham Morris after the family contacted the press. It should be noted that the Daily Mirror is a UK tabloid newspaper whose stories have often proved less than credible. The levitation was scary, recalled Janet, because you didn't know where you were going to land. But apparently supporting the family's claim, there were 2 witnesses, a baker and a lollipop lady, who were passing by outside and claimed to have seen Janet hovering above her bed as they looked through the upstairs window. Yeah. So the lady saw me spinning around and banging against the window, recalls Janet. I thought I might actually break the window and go through it.
That's crazy.
Hence the window scene, I'm sure.
That could be.
Then the Warrens were actually far less involved with this
than they were.
It actually, like, because
they really just went to observe.
Yeah, basically. And it's not really as much of their case as it is like with someone else. And then I just really want to see, okay, did the man who allegedly possessed Janet die in the downstairs living room years earlier? Yes, that is a fact. Bill Wilkins died of a hemorrhage in his chair.
And then what about the mom? You said.
That's what I want to see. I'm hoping that it's in here. We learned it a lot.
Either way, it's pretty creepy. And I mean, that he died there, and let alone in that house as well. Anybody dying in any house, that's creepy.
Ooh.
But yeah.
Okay, so the real Janet Hodgson believes that it was a priest's 1978 visit to the family's Enfield home in North London that caused the haunting to calm down, not the Warrens. Though the occurrences did not end completely, Peggy still heard noises in the house from time to time, and Janet's younger brother Billy, who lived there until his mother passed, remarked that you always felt like you were being watched. That's a little photo of, I suppose, Janet being possessed. And caught Janet faking. Oh, Maurice Gross caught Janet faking at times as well. And so that's interesting.
But yeah, so should we get to the boo ratings?
Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to give it a 4.
A 4?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4.
Why is that?
I like the story. I think out of both Conjurings, I think I like this one more than the first one, just by a little bit, by a hair. I really like the introduction of the Crooked Man. I think that itself needs to be like its own storyline, which I think there is. Like it's supposed to be. It's been brought up, but I don't know if they're necessarily going to do it. And I liked Valak. I liked that whole part of the storyline. I thought this demon was a lot more scarier than Bathsheba in essence, and I feel like the stakes were a little bit higher because we had the fact that Ed was kind of may or may not have been dying in this one.
Yeah.
There are a few things here and there where it could have been a little different, maybe, like we said, but overall I think it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'd give it a 4 for the Conjuring series.
What did you give? I don't remember what you gave the last one.
The other one, I believe it gave it a 3.5, if not a 4. But yes.
Okay. I was like, I think I gave it a 5. I don't really remember. Maybe I did.
I don't remember. We should start writing that down. But this one, what do you think?
I used to, and then I stopped. Yeah, I think I do like this one a little bit less, actually. It is, most of the time I'm not super bothered by how long films are, unless they start bordering on 3 hours long, in which case I'm like, okay, let's hurry it up. Unless it's like The Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or something, or a superhero film, in which, well, sometimes those can even be shorter. But so there were a few points where this one actually did drag for me, and watching it I was like, okay, is this going to be done soon?
I feel that
it didn't
it's really long. How long is the first one? I feel like the first one was just as long.
It was better paced then because it felt, the first one feels like it's so easy to watch. There were a few times, and it's not like that there was actually ever a big lull in events, because I do feel like things were happening, but I felt like maybe something about it just felt almost, I don't know. It felt like it came in like sections, but not in like a great, like Ganja and Hess kind of sections like that, like where we're getting a like chapter 1 kind of thing. But it almost just feels like it's not almost like one story. I'm watching this one again, like through this critical eye. I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I really see. That's what made me think back to The Devil Made Me Do It and be like, ooh, I really shit on that movie for not like having a very good timeline at all.
Yeah.
And then I this one is still, again, more concrete. But there were times where it didn't feel like it flowed.
Yeah.
And it felt like a little, I don't know, separated. And so it did feel just like a little long to get through. Almost. The Crooked Man was fun. His smile and stuff was cheesy, but also if I saw that in real life, I'd shit my pants. Very
I like the
Slendy
different
vibes.
type of like media that it was, like the claymation type.
I did like that. And he was fucking terrifying. Like, and also, that toy is like, why is that a children's toy?
Yeah, and the song.
It's so creepy.
Crooked Man. He had a crooked house.
Yeah. It's like, ugh. But I think I do still love this film. I think I would have to give it a 4. I'm going to say 3.75, actually.
That's fair.
I do still really enjoy it, but it does not hold as much of like a place in my heart as the Conjuring one does. The Conjuring 1 did a phenomenal job. And this one did as well. I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I've watched it multiple times since it came out. And that's, again, was like so excited. I really do want to go back and give like The Devil Made Me Do It
another chance.
No,
another
I want
run
to give
through.
it a like 1.
And give it even less.
I gave it a 2.5 because I thought that was a bad rating, and now I'm like, I definitely did not like that movie.
Well, it was
as much
also our
as others.
second episode, so
That's
we didn't
true.
have much to compare it to.
That's true. So I'd be curious. I wouldn't actually mind going back to kind of revisit it. Maybe that's something we can do as like a re-record
redos
and
and see how we
release them
feel.
on like a Patreon or something.
That's true.
If y'all'd be interested in that,
Let us know.
That'd be fun. And like make special, and we can even open it up too to where it's like a live chat kind of thing. That is a thing you can do on Patreon.
Oh, really?
You can basically do like go lives on there.
Yeah, like a Twitch type of thing. Cool.
So that could be fun.
Let us know in our DMs.
Yeah, but so that is a 3.75 and a 4.
4.
So basically a 4.
A 4. Yeah. 3.9. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's
for
our
2016's The Conjuring 2, directed by James Wan and the Hayes brothers.
Yeah. And next week we're going to be covering
Mama.
Yes.
Jeff's pick. That's right. I'm so excited to finally cover this film
I know.
for him. Because again, he's such a phenomenal, like,
it's such a good movie.
Yeah. And I haven't watched it in so long. It's been at least like probably 6 years since I've seen this film. So I'm very excited to go back and watch it.
I think the last time I watched it was when it like came out
right when
in the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I think I didn't see it in theaters. Maybe I did. No, I think I confuse it with Lady in Black sometimes too.
That's Daniel Radcliffe. Yeah.
And I know for a fact I saw that one in theaters.
Way different story.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one gives more like Crimson Peak kind of. But Mama, I'm pretty sure I watched it like whenever it first released. And it was, I remember pretty much liking it until they showed her face. So I'm
Can't
excited.
like say anything until something gets seen. Basically.
It's so much fucking creepier. Whenever like, oh God, we had this one ghost in my house as a child who would walk past mine and my brother's rooms. We lived in separate rooms. But for some reason, none of our like doors in the house had actual doors on them. We just had like kind of like little sheets or something. But most of the time, like mine was like pulled back over the door. And then every night, like kind of like clockwork, this little boy would walk past my room, then walk past my brother's room and go into the bathroom. And we like to the point like where we didn't really talk about it for a little bit until like one time one of us mentioned it and we were like, oh, you see that too. Like we thought maybe we were just being like kind of crazy at night, but like where our beds were, you could see out of the room. It was a trailer house. Like you can't, rooms aren't very big. But like this ghost, I don't know. Maybe it's also he didn't give very like threatening vibes. We named him like Day Day, which I don't know why that was.
Yeah.
We were children, so that was the name that came out of our brains. But like, I'm almost like 99.9% certain this ghost had half a face. He didn't have a full face.
Mm-hmm.
And like you could see it, I think, from the back. Like I think his face was like on the side that he passed us. But once he passed the door, you could see that half of it was like gone. And that, I mean, he never turned to look at us. And so
you
like,
never knew if he had another half of a face?
I guess. And so like that, but that whole being in like suspense and not knowing was like so terrifying.
Gotcha.
But then also we weren't scared of him because he didn't give bad vibes. Like it was never like he was trying. It was a very residual haunting. And I don't know, like literally like a ghost with half a face walked by and like you could see that he only had half a face, but like just not being able to see it head on and like having to imagine whatever the front of his face, like if you were looking at him front on, like
It's
was
more
so much
scarier
more
to you.
scary. And so I don't know. It's just, it feels like kind of like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Like always seeing the ghost out of the corner of your eye is like, because then the times when I have seen ghosts like head on, it's been full like apparitions and they look normal. That house was fucking haunted. That house I have some wild stories from. And multiple times I had face-to-face encounters with this like younger girl spirit who was in there. And
that's weird.
It wasn't scary, but like hearing her laugh out of nowhere, that was terrifying.
I've never had like a full encounter like that, so I don't know. That's so creepy.
It is.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I don't know. I think that's why I just, it's the things that are like, because it's almost like someone approaching from behind you, you know, like that's terrifying.
No, yeah, for sure.
Because you can't see them.
Yeah.
But then once you see them, there's a sense of familiarity.
A lot more fear and like not seeing it because you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
there's
so
fear in the
it's just that sense of the unknown. And that's why I love it so much. And I really wish they wouldn't lean into it sometimes.
Yeah.
But then there are times like in Grave Encounters, it was kind of silly, but like also I would fucking cry if I saw that in real life.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get why they do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes they've just got such a beautiful moment going. And then I just wish people had more imagination so they didn't have to spell it out for them.
Yeah.
It's fucking lowbrow horror fans.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm not going to shit on half of them.
But I get what you mean. There's something about leaving something to the eye or not to the eye.
That's right. More to be discovered. But as always,
we're in the lovely Rogue Media Network studios.
They take great care of us.
Make sure you check out our podcast. Any other podcasts that are run by them on roguemedianetwork.com.
Including Poltergals, who, as you've heard us mention multiple times on this episode, but yeah,
we're going to be
by the time that this is coming out, the live show's already happened actually.
Yeah.
So look forward to a recording if you haven't. But yeah, we were excited that
that's true.
It happened. Yeah. Just so you know, we're recording this way before the live show.
It is happening way before the live show.
And then this episode will come out
after the fact.
Yeah, a week later.
Because it's coming the 22nd, right?
So this one would come out on the 28th or something. This episode would. It's going to come out on that Friday. The before Halloween happens, and Halloween's a Monday, 31st. So that would make 29th and the 30th. So I believe
Are you
Friday's
sure
the
this
20th.
episode's coming out?
Yeah. This is Conjuring. So this week is going to be the Halloween series. Conjuring.
Yeah, Conjuring. So, and it's not happening until the 22nd.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm like, it's not happening yet.
This is Mama and Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
Yay! Okay,
I'm
JK,
like, it's
so
not,
come.
It's not.
Phew.
It's not
Okay.
happened yet.
Yay!
Okay.
Well, come see us then.
Yeah.
Because then we can talk more about the Amityville
Horror.
Amityville Horror and the
Yes.
Amityville actual haunting with the Lutz family.
So it's a great build up for the show coming up this weekend, you guys.
So that'll be tomorrow. Then, assuming this releases on Friday, as I believe they should be. But it could also come out on Thursday.
But we're also going to stop talking about dates because
who knows?
It'll come out though.
It'll come
this
out whenever
same
you're
week,
hearing
and
it.
this weekend, you guys come out, please.
Either 2 days
if you're
or the next.
Hopefully even still listening to this last bit of the episode.
They will be.
Yes.
17 minutes.
Yeah, like
happened?
an hour. It's already rolled over.
Oh, I see. Oh, but it normally goes in when we've recorded for.
It starts over at 90. It starts
2
over
hours.
so yeah, we're over. Yeah.
Oh well, this was a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, it is. But
there's a lot to be discovered. And we'll fact check and let you know if she actually did die in that house, because I can't find it yet.
Caitlin won't sleep tonight
I
until
won't.
she finds out.
I need to know.
But we are, where are we? Yeah,
You can listen to us
Mm-hmm.
or any of the other great podcasts like Poultry Gals and stuff on roguemedianetwork.com or on any of your favorite podcasting platforms, biggest two being
Spotify
and also Apple Podcasts. And wherever you do listen, don't forget to
rate, review, like, and subscribe,
because it is the only way we can get ahead in this world. And then if you want to let us know your thoughts on any of the horror films that we have talked about, or if you have ones you want us to cover in the future, please reach out to us on our one social media platform, that is Instagram at
Boobays Podcast. That's at BOOBAES, because we're your boobays, not your boobabes.
That's right. And until next time.
Until next time. Bye, babes.
Bye, babes.
Love you.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
At Novavax, we want to make sure you have all the facts. And the fact is, there are different types of COVID-19 vaccines available. So if you're thinking about getting an updated vaccine, ask your doctor or pharmacist about the options available to you so you can make an informed choice. Find out more at WeDoVaccines.com. That's WeDoVaccines.com. This message was brought to you by Novavax.